Hey guys, so we're back. So just got done our testing of the Bear Grylls knife. I gotta say, it didn't do half bad. You know, for the price point, I bought mine for 50 bucks. Of course, I was at Walmart, so I'm sure we'll see this a little bit lower. You know, the one bad thing about this knife, and you know, I gotta go with it. I'm pretty uniform in that, is the serrations. I don't like serrations, and here's a prime reason why. I'll give you guys a couple close-up looks at this blade right now. All right. So as you guys can see, the serrations are kind of worked out right now. They're really bent up and jagged. And the reason being is this serration style is something that works very well on maybe a pocket folder. I do not think that these style of serrations, or serrations in general, there's a very few exceptions. One of the exceptions is if you go like look at an SE, like the SE4 or the SE5, even the SE6, it has a different shape of serration. They're more uniform. They're not like this, and these are concaved, theirs are convexed. So this type of serration, it doesn't work for me. I mean, first of all, they're chiseled, so this is flat back right here from this grind, and as of right now, when I run my finger up down like this, I feel this jaggedness from the metal being bent and everything. So that's one disappointment I had on this. But it's not really this knife specifically, it's serrations, you know, in general. I'm just not a big fan of it, and that's why they're very hard to maintain. And you know, as you guys saw in the video, that's after some batoning. Now, of course, batoning is very controversial in certain groups. Some people do not like batoning. Even on the back of this Bear Grylls box, it reads, applying force onto the back of the blade or contact may result in injury. Always keep the blade away from fingers and body. Do not use if damage or blade is just loose, or apply force onto the back of the blade. Handle with care. If not in use, store in sheath or a safe place. So even, you know, they're putting a disclaimer on here, a caution is don't apply force on the back of the blade. So I mean, that kind of tells you right there you don't want to use it for batoning. You know, my personal belief is that any knife that's going to be marketed as a survival knife, you need to know how to baton properly. It is a useful tool. I use it all the time. A knife like this size, like I said before, you know, you want to, you know, baton smaller pieces of deadfall. I wouldn't be out there, you know, batoning huge pieces of tree. A good rule of thumb is about half the blade is the ideal material that you want to baton, so you have enough room to work on to split that piece of wood. So, but you know, all in all, the handle was very comfortable. The knife did not come very sharp out of the box, but you know, I think it's a little inconsistent. I talked to a buddy of mine who just picked up one of these, Hinckley, Poland. He said his was extremely sharp out of the box. He said his was sharper out of the box than a $200 knife he just recently purchased, a $200 custom knife. So mine, as you guys saw, was not very sharp out of the box. I was able to touch it a little bit, did the belly a little bit sharper, and I was able to do a little feather sticking at the end there. The design itself is actually, I'm actually a fan of this template of design, or this platform, I should say. You know, the holes to a spear is pretty cool. The shape of the handle is actually pretty comfortable, as I said before. I don't have really any issues there. The jimping, I think, serves its purpose. A little bit of friction there to have a good solid hold, but it's not too aggressive that it rubs your hand raw and everything. So the worst thing about this, I have to say, is the serrations. The metal itself is a very soft metal. I think it's a 440A. But you know, the pommel, one good thing, one positive thing, is that the pommel did not break, did not crack. I was holding it back there on the pommel, and so we didn't have any issues with it on that end. I'll be interested to see how well this knife holds up over time. So one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take this to some different training sessions and classes that we do. Let students, you know, work with this knife, use it a little bit. I think I'm going to actually probably slowly take out the serrations altogether. I might pull the blade up a little bit, maybe make that a little bit of a draw blade, because the serrations right now aren't doing me any good. So we'll have to see if we can make that changes. Fire steel back is not bad. I've had knives just, you know, just this normal spine. They didn't have to do anything like that, like my Falcon even, which there was an awesome spark. The Hedgehog or Ontario Blackbird SK5, I keep on calling it the Hedgehog because it's Paul Schneider's knife. That thing throws a nasty spark. Even the back of my Benchmade 580 Barrage throws a good spark. So I don't think this is necessarily needed. The coating on this knife, actually, I think is totally unnecessary. I mean, I guess they're using it so they can put the symbol and the bearer's signature and everything, but for this to be a survival blade, I would actually like to see this to have some kind of a polished look, have it be highly reflective. I mean, then you could sit there and use it as a reflective surface used it for signaling. I mean, right now all you have is the serrations to use and some of the blade edge, which, you know, I guess is still possible. But I mean, if I want to have a reflective surface, give you as much surface area as possible. Since this is stainless steel, you're not going to worry about it corroding anyway. So might as well go ahead and get rid of that coating and make it a highly reflective surface. I like the fact that the orange is there. A lot of people have said that they don't like the orange. It's ugly, or, you know, it's not really their cup of tea, not as aesthetically pleasing. It's something more tactical looking. But, you know, this is a survival knife. This thing is not designed to be a fighter. So the orange, you know, some contrasting colors are good. It draws attention. Orange is a color that, you know, can be pretty rare in nature. So this is definitely great stuff. And, you know, against a green backdrop or something like that, or even a desert backdrop, this would stand out. And you're always looking for shape and contrast. So that's not a bad thing to have, especially if you drop it, you're able to find it. Some of these tactical OD green knives and desert knives, I've actually been with some buddies who've dropped their knife and they're having a problem perceiving it. They might see it, but they don't really perceive that it's there because it's camoed. So all in all, not a bad knife. And like I said before, based off the LMF2, which I'm a fan of. Some people don't like that knife, some people love that knife. So not bad at all. We're going to see what else we can get into with this knife. As for the sheath, the sheath is one of those things where I think they took an awesome sheath design, being the LMF2, one of my favorite production sheaths out there. And they kind of added some stuff that I kind of liked, but then they kind of also added some stuff I didn't really like. Let's start with the back. You have this Bear Grylls instruction manual, which isn't that bad. The first thing I'm going to show you is it is a pain in the butt to get in there and get out. If I can even, oh man. So I don't know, you know, what you want to do. This is actually a piece of plastic, kind of like a rubbery plastic that everything is printed on with these instructions. And this is just basic signaling instructions. We'll give you guys a close-up look at that. Very rudimentary type stuff. As for this little survival packet, it's not bad. It's got some decent information on there, but it's one of these things where I really think it'd be better served to have some other information, because it's one of those things like once you're out in the thick of it, it's kind of too late to do some of the stuff on here. For example, talking about clothing, you know, clothing is, you know, a big section of this. This whole section right here, this whole panel right here is all about clothing. It talks about clothing as your first line of defense. Well, when you're already out there in a survival situation, you don't really have a chance to go back and get any clothing. The fire section's not bad. It talks about a bow drill, a fire saw, and everything like that. It talks about some really basic information for the fire. But the diagrams are a little too simplistic, and as somebody who teaches people how to do bow drill, I don't really necessarily think that's very effective diagram. I think that they should have focused on one technique, be it the fire saw. And this is actually, I've always heard this one be called the fire, like the plow fire. I've heard the fire saw actually a little bit different when you're actually sawing something. But you know, that's one thing about survival training. Everybody's got different names for the same thing. You know, fuzz sticks or feather sticks, and sometimes those names get crisscrossed and everyththing. The rescue stuff I thought was very good. The shelter diagrams, I mean, here he's got 5 different shelter types, and you always got to be adapting to whatever situation you're in or whatever you're in. So that one's not bad. Then it has a little rescue navigation type thing, a few snares, but of course if you don't have any snare wire, or you're making natural cordage, it's one of those things. If you know how to make natural cordage, you know how to make fire. So based on your training and everything, I think the solar stills and the vegetation still design, still the vegetation design was not bad. And there's a couple simple knots, which I actually thought that was pretty cool. Also, there's a little measurement thing right here, which actually isn't a bad deal. There's inches right here and centimeters right here. That might help you with, you know, designing some traps and everything like that. It's never a bad thing to have some different measuring tools. The paper itself actually feels like a really durable type paper. It doesn't feel like it feels like it's very water resistant. It's not bad. I think it's, like I said before, I think this knife would actually be pretty good for a youth. Except for the serrations. I wouldn't really recommend serrations for a youth knife, and for the price point of being $60, you might be, you know, pressing it there. I'm trying to get this. So that's one other problem with this. If you wiggle it in there too much, you can't get it out, and then, you know, it's not going to do you any use. All right, back to the back of the sheath. You do have 2 straps here. I guess you can throw a molly strap on there, or you can possibly hang it scout style in your back. it also has a belt loop right here, and the belt loop right here is kind of in a funky place. And as you can see, it's very wide. You can get a very thick regular type belt, but then it's going to be pretty high in your side. And if you're a guy like me that every once in a while after a good meal has some overhang, it might dig into your side a little bit, or depending on how you wear it. I actually like to wear my belt my knife more in the front of my hip except the side or the back. So that's just how I like to wear my knife. So that would dig into me a little bit. That's why I like a little bit more like a drop leg type carry with my knife, and that hangs a little bit lower. So you do have the two horizontal belt loops. The belt loops are just no frills type of thing. The retention strap actually is not bad. It's elastic, so it'll work. It'll hold there pretty snugly. No complaints about this. The same kind of friction retention clip system that the LMF2 and the Prodigy use, which I'm actually a very big fan of. You can carry this upside down. You can probably attach this to some kind of molly vest if you wanted to, or some kind of molly bag. And if that's the way you want to carry the knife, it's not a problem at all. So like I said before, so friction hold, you can even just throw a little bit of forward force with your thumb to make it come out a little bit quieter if you want to. Pretty big fan of this system by Gerber. Velcro it right here to pivot this way. You have access to the diamond sharpening stone. And actually, I didn't even realize until I was shooting outside that you can actually take this part out. I actually thought this was sewn together. So you can free the sheath all together. And I'll tell you, you can probably add some other nylon pieces if you want to, or doctor this up somehow. This is the kind of stuff that guys I know love because they can do whatever they want to do with this. For the Firestarter, it's not a bad design. It's not easier to get out. I put the lanyard on the Firestarter and took the lanyard off the knife. The whistle lanyard, the piece of 550 cord, and then also it's gutted 550. It's just too small to get your hand through. It's not going to be able to serve as a lanyard at that point. And also another thing too is, you've had a lanyard. If you guys had a lanyard on before and it's a little too long or whatever, or you're doing something, you don't want anything else attached to it because you might inadvertently smash it or break it. And the whistle is very important. So anytime you're swinging around something, I take the whistle off your lanyard. I would not leave that on the knife lanyard. So we put it on the Firesteel, which also has a lanyard hole. The whistle's not bad. I'm not going to do it inside. I did it outside. You guys heard it. It feels like pretty durable plastic. It is two pieces, so the case that holds it out and actually the whistle itself kind of fits in there. But I don't think I can remove it. I was playing around with it a little bit, but I think it's stuck in there pretty good. So that's good. The Firesteel wasn't bad. Actually, like I said before, I like the design. Easy to hold, very comfortable to hold. One thing that I did inadvertently is I kind of wore some of the plastic that the steel actually sits in. Give you guys a closer look, and you can see how that's worn a little bit, unfortunately. So just be careful when you guys are out there using that. If you wear that too much, the steel might get loose and then fall out. You don't want that to happen. One other thing that I did for this, that actually adding the lanyard to the Firesteel, is it allows me to secure this a little bit more, so I make sure I don't brush up against anything and this would fall out. So what I did is we'll throw the sheath back on here. So you see how it's hanging right there. I just simply wrap this around the inside of the sheath, and then once we secure this down, the pressure of the fold over is going to make sure that this doesn't move away. So that'll make sure you secure your Firesteel in there. So all in all, not bad. So let's give you guys a couple close-up shots of the knife and give you all the specs. So here we have the knife. Overall length is 10 inches with a blade length of 4.8 inches. The weight is 14.7 ounces with the sheath. Without the sheath, it's 11.2. The handle itself, like I said before, pretty ergonomic, decent thumb ramp. You guys can see a little bit of wear on the coating thus far, and then of course some substantial wear on the serration. So guys, all in all, it didn't do bad. There are a couple of things that we like to see improvement wise. Bear is a very popular name out there in reference to some survival information. His Discovery Channel show, Man vs. Wild. Of course, Gerber's got a long reputation of having quality stuff out there. So we'll be excited to see what happens with this. There's a couple other knives in the series that we would like to get our hands on, specifically the Parang. That looks like it's pretty good. So all in all, not bad. Like to see a couple of things improvement. For $60, you have to ask yourself if that's really worth your while. There's some other great knives around that price that you can get that I think are a little bit more durable than this. But if you're a big Gerber fan or a big Bear fan, it might be something that you want to get. For those adults who have teens or youths who are very interested in this knife, I think that it will serve them okay. Again, the only problem that I really have that I have to keep on going at is the serrations. So not really a big fan of the serrations. Well, hey guys, this is Adam from Equip to Endure. If you guys have any questions or comments, please email me at adam@equiptoendure.com. You guys take care, be safe out there, and remember, if you're not always prepared, you're never prepared. Thanks.